if we don't talk about non-duality, then I don't think we can really talk about Buddhism at all. But non-duality is not so easy. Recently I was talking to Indians, just Indian intellectuals. And I was even kind of worried that how much we Tibetans actually managed to conceive the idea of non-duality thoroughly, as much as these Indians seems to have done. It's not that easy, this non-duality, to really conceive this. Especially if you think like, I think, Karl Popper's way. And if you really think that something can be observed and valued objectively, non-duality is difficult. About a year ago, I met a professor in America, Berkeley University, and he's told me something very interesting. He said, actually, it's very important that the Tibetan Lamas know the history of Buddhism, and especially the history of Buddhism in the West. And he said, especially in America, because he said that the emergence of Buddhism in the West it started with a very a Descartes-like Buddhism. So it's a very dualistic Buddhism, so to speak. I can see some sense. I can understand him, because even the most seasoned Dharma practitioner in the West, sometimes I do have doubt how much they are really understanding. Of course, we are not talking about actually a realization of non-duality, but we are talking about intellectual understanding of non-duality. Because the concept is just not provable. Because every logic, language, method of measurement is dualistic. So dualistic method cannot measure and value something non-dualistic, obviously. And anything that cannot be proved, or anything that does not have a manufacturing date, so to speak, I think in the materialistic world, modern world, it's all not really, it's a story, basically. It's like a story. It really doesn't have much value in it. I'm throwing you this because the question, what is really bodhicitta, is quite an important question. Because at glance, when you hear the word bodhicitta, I'm sure for many it's referring to a very philanthropic, compassionate, kind, and tolerant kind of mind. When often, we sort of say that somebody is a bodhisattva because so-and-so person does not throw tantrums. Therefore, he or she is a bodhisattva. always a bodhisattva is assumed to be someone who is gentle, smiling, sort of never throw temper. So Bodichita, and also I think generally when people talk about religion and religious practices, we do tend to talk about love, compassion, forgiveness. So somehow, and also in the West, of course, many Western religions like Christianity does seem to have all this element. So immediately, when we talk about bodhicitta, people tend to think bodhicitta is something to do with, love and compassion, kindness. Of course, I'm not saying that that is wrong. But this is not the end of the bodhicitta. In fact, a big part of the bodhicitta is the non-duality. If you lose the non-duality aspect of the bodhicitta, actually if we lose the non-duality, we have lost 99.99 aspect of the bodhicitta. We have lost. We may have a little bit of that smiling, touchy-feely kind of, do the right thing kind of bodhicitta. But yes, if we don't have the non-duality, then we have lost a big portion, really, the biggest portion of the bodhicitta. And this is backed by lots of sutras and shastras. One of the shastra that I'm sure many of you have read, such as Shantadeva's Bodhicharya Avatara. Right at the beginning of the 9th chapter, the Shantadeva said, all these practices of the Bodhisattva practices, such as discipline, mindfulness, meditation, vigilance, generosity, one-pointed concentration, all of these are nothing. They are really nothing if it is not accompanied or if it is not grounded to the prajna or the wisdom. But this is difficult, as I was saying earlier. This is very difficult because, especially the non-duality, as I'm repeating again and again, it's not something that we can discuss, talk, demonstrate. The best we could do is sort of say a few words about it. Even though it is the most important part, it is very difficult to express. So, emotionally, every time when we attempt to practice the bodhicitta, we always end up holding on to the relative aspect of the bodhicitta, which is usually love and compassion, all of that. If we read a sutra very carefully, actually Buddha demonstrated these things again and again. Even the structure of the sutra can tell us a lot. The very popular sutra, Vajrachedika Sutra, which is translated loosely as diamond cut cutter, the diamond cutting sutra or diamond cutter. If you read this from the beginning, it has a full descriptions about how Buddha, after having the lunch, washing the begging bowl, folding his robes, folding his meditation mat, putting it properly on the ground, sitting on that mat, sitting very straight, and then he did some meditation. And then the discourse begins with one of the close disciples called Subhuti. And then they go on, and then there's a long discourse. It's like 40 pages of conversation between his close disciple Subhuti and him. And towards the end, Buddha begins to say things like, Buddha begins to ask his disciple Subhuti, have I taught? And Subhuti said, no, you haven't taught. And Buddha said, excellent, I have never taught. Does Buddha have 32 major marks, 80 minor marks, golden color, all of that, the sort of what we call Buddha quality, the physical Buddha quality? Subhuti said the same thing, no. So, there again, it is, it is out of lack of tools or methods to demonstrate the ultimate truth. This is the best thing he could do, so to speak. Shakyamuni Buddha, after he achieved enlightenment, the first thing he said was that he found a truth that cannot be expressed, that cannot be conceived by, ordinary mind or mind. It cannot be, it cannot be subjective. Therefore, he is not going to, and therefore he decides to remain in the forest. But it's believed that his would-be disciple, Indira and Brahma, they came and asked him to teach. Asked him to teach, and he then agreed to teach, beginning with teachings in Saranath. So, it's a very difficult to understand the ultimate bodhicitta. But as I said, without that, the bodhicitta is not complete. In fact, a big part of the bodhicitta is not complete.